According to the notes, is a 0 at the bottom, or maybe a half, and then kind of fade it into the top.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Yep.
Same style with the top, and just maybe shorten it a bit. Okay. Usually get your haircut about once a month or so, right? Okay. So just kind of a maintenance cut, basically, just back to normal, what he was about a month ago. Nice and simple. So it hasn't been that long since his last haircut, but I'm gonna go ahead and my first step is gonna be to debulk. So that's basically gonna take this hair down shorter. So that way when I start the actual fading process, it's easier to see the lines and everything when you debulk first. So this is a 3, start with that. Do you normally wear a hat when you're
No.
I normally don't wear a hat unless it's time for a haircut. Wearing a hat now.
Can you cut your hair?
What's that? You want to cut my hair?
Yeah.
That would be a good video idea. A client cuts the barber's hair. I'd like to try that one day. So now I'm going to start with, you want to do the half today at the bottom or a 0?
Yeah, we'll do the half first.
You want to start with the half? Okay. A good tip is if the client's not sure how short they want to go, always go with the longer option, because you can always go shorter if they end up changing their mind. So I'm going to start with a half, which is the lever all the way open, and I'm going to bring it up to right about here and start blending from there. To prevent having to do the whole haircut over again, I'm going to stop right there and show him what I did with the mirror, and if he's happy with that, we'll continue on, but if he wants to go shorter, then I don't have to do the whole haircut again. So here's the mirror. Yeah. Does that look like a good length, or do you want to go shorter?
Yeah.
Okay. We can always go shorter later if he wants to, but a lot of times this can help prevent doing a whole other haircut again if you do this test patch technique. So we'll go with this for now. But if you want to go shorter later, it's no problem. I don't mind. Now I'm going to step to the side here while he's turned that way. So that way I can see the other side in the mirror, and I can make sure both sides are even, right? Because we don't want to have like a low fade on one side and a high fade on this side. So we're just going to make sure both sides are even, and the mirror is a great tool to do that. That way we can check, which I learned this from my wife, is that you can look in the mirror and make sure that the short part is even on both sides. And it looks pretty even to me. And now, in order to keep the haircut even on both sides going forward, we just need to make sure that each step after also is the same, going the same amount on each side of the head. Because you can still end up with a high fade on one side and a low fade on the other, even beyond this step, if the next steps after it aren't exactly the same too. Now I'm gonna go with my next step. So I'm gonna go with the lever all the way open. Hey, Michelle. Next guideline. So there is more than one way to do a good haircut. I don't think there is a right or wrong way. So some people like to fade up, some people like to fade down. I do a combination of both. So I debulk by fading up like this, and then to erase this line, I'll close the lever and fade down until it's gone. There's no right or wrong way. That's probably why it takes so long to learn how to cut hair. There's so many different ways to do it, so many different hairstyles. Just kind of figuring out which is the best way for you. So now I'm going to close my lever up all the way. I went from open to closed, and then we're going to start working on erasing that first guide that we made with the no guard lever open. So I've got my half guard on there now. I'm going to start with like halfway open, but I'm probably going to be like opening and then closing it throughout this portion of the haircut, and probably using mainly the corners too to avoid making a new line. So next step, I'm going to take my number 2 guard and create my next line. So we debulked this, if you remember, with a 3 and a 4. So it's going to start getting kind of hard to erase or to see the lines in the next few steps, because we're kind of getting close to the end in terms of the amount of work we need to do blending wise. So I remember I was training a barber one time, and I noticed that I think this is something that's common with new barbers, but they're like, I'll show you the difference, right? So this is how sometimes you can tell whether a barber is new or not. So barbers that have been cutting for a while, they keep the clipper on the head like this, but sometimes barbers that are new are doing this thing, and you see, you feel the difference, where it's like kind of banging against your head the whole time. So it's kind of like these little things that you learn throughout the years of being a barber, like things that you can do to make the haircut more comfortable for the client. Also makes the haircut less choppy if you're not doing this like choppy jerking movement. Best barbers that I've seen, they're very smooth and precise with their actions. They're not doing these random jerky movements. Full times, it's still cutting hair. That's why you gotta constantly go in these different directions when you're doing a haircut. So like going against the hair like this is gonna get most of it. You'd be surprised if even if you go over it again, it'll probably still pick up some hair. Even though this clipper is moving at, several thousand rotations per minute, going over it again is you're probably gonna catch some hairs that you didn't get the first time. So always a good idea to go over it again. Next, I'm gonna go with my 1.5 guard now. Trace that line, that's right there, in between the 1 open and the 2 closed. Going in with the 1.5 closed. Doing a haircut on clients that have a little bit of color variation in their hair used to really mess with me when I was first learning to cut hair, and still does every now and then. But one trick that I learned, that even if it doesn't look blended straight on, sometimes you can look for the side like this, and as long as it looks like a nice smooth blend from the side, that's all that matters, right? And it can't hurt to go over it again if you're not sure, but sometimes the color variation in hair can kind of throw off how smoothly blended it looks. So that was a 1.5. Now I'm gonna go back to my 1 with the lever open. Start going, erasing that last final line here. You don't need to use the mirror the whole time if you're a barber doing a haircut. But when it starts to get hard to see the flaws, that's when the mirror comes in handy. Gives you a little bit of a different perspective. The mirror is just as important of a tool as any of the tools on your station. That's why, clients sometimes don't understand that the barber needs to see the mirror. You'll see it. You'll see your haircut when we're done, or throughout. We'll do these little check-ins, but especially with any sort of fade on the sides, it's really important that the barber can check the work in the mirror, make sure it's smooth. I'm going to be switching to my number 3, start tying it into the top. How long have you had this hairstyle, Trent?
For a long time.
Stick with what you know.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
It's easy.
low maintenance. What do you use to style your hair?
Just the powder that you guys have.
Styling powder?
Mm.
Yeah, it's a good choice. Did you want me to put some of that in your hair when we're done?
Yes, please.
Okay. I can do that. So I would consider like the first phase of a haircut kind of done at this point. The first phase for me is just kind of like the rough draft. There's still going to be flaws in the haircut. There's still going to be things to go over. Now we're kind of getting into the detail part of the phase or haircut, where now that we've got most of that hair out of the way, now it's time to start refining the haircut. And we're using the mirror a lot more. We're double checking our work. We're switching guards now. Because now it's time to start really tying everything together. It doesn't have to be perfect every step of the way. In fact, I think that wastes a lot of time. Get the first draft of the haircut done and go back and refine it. So this is my 2. I'm going to start working on just any dark spots. 1.5. This is the part of the haircut where you definitely want to be mindful. Use the corners whenever possible, because if you guess wrong and you guard on there and you end up going too short, at least if you're just using the corners, it won't do as much damage as if you go in there with the whole blade and now you have to redo the whole haircut. So this is my 1 open. Every client's hair is different, but sometimes I've noticed that fades look better on my strong side. So I'm right-handed barber. So typically, not always, but typically fades look better on the right side whenever I do a haircut. And I notice that's pretty common in other barbers that I see. But everybody's hair is different, every haircut's different. Sometimes the haircut looks better on the side that has the better lighting. So, have you ever gotten a haircut, Trent, where you, meh?
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah?
Not over here though.
Oh, okay, good to know. One of the things that we try to do here that I think helps with the consistency of the haircuts is we try to take notes on pretty much every client that comes in, because whether it's, you know, you come back to me or come back to somebody else, as long as the notes are accurate, it's going to increase the likelihood that you get a more consistent haircut. Taking notes is one of the things that we try to be good about. Just like, you probably would hope that when you go to the doctor's office, they have kind of a record of all the things that last time you saw them, and I don't think barbershops would be any different. It's just kind of a little bit more work to do, but in the long term, it definitely makes sense to take super detailed notes on clients. Do you want me to blend in the beard into the sides there? Okay. So I started with the 2, and then I'm just basically going in reverse order of how I did the sides. So I'm going to do 2, 1.5, 1, fading up until this is blended in with the sides here. I don't know if there's like a technically correct term for this technique that I'm doing now to blend in the sideburns, but I've always called it like reverse fading because the guards are getting shorter as you get higher up, where it's normally you wouldn't do that for a haircut. Do the same thing on the other side. Typically, you know, going this short, I would recommend tapering it anyways, because the line is already like kind of gone for your neckline. So it lasts a little bit longer if you taper it. So I learned this lesson the hard way, but I always start the hairline lining up down here, because one day I started up here and I ended up going way too far in the hairline and basically gave the guy a mohawk. So ever since then, I always start here, and I try not to make lines unless I can see the end point. So that trimmer is going to be pointing to where I'm going with this line, and that's going to help prevent going too far into the hairline. I never saw that guy again, by the way. At least he didn't come back to me. Yeah, cutting hair is, I think, being a barber is, in general, is just all about learning what not to do, because anybody can take, you know, if you can count, you can cut hair. It's like, it's take the 1 guard, then take the 2 guard, then take the 3 guard. But it's all the little steps in between that make the difference. All right, so we're gonna move on to the top now. So normally you do about once a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, we'll start with about a month's worth, which about 1/2 inch a month is the average. So we'll start with that. So does that look about right?
Yeah, maybe just a little shorter.
A little shorter? Okay, good. Okay. Sometimes I'll step to the side when doing these, making this first guideline, because I don't want to make the front like shorter than the rest of the hair. So by stepping to the side, it makes it a little bit easier to make sure that that front isn't being cut too short, because the head curves. So if I cut the front the same length as the rest, the front ends up being shorter, even though it's technically the same length, but it appears shorter because it's going down. And that's why clipper cuts look a lot different than scissor cuts, because scissor work typically means that you're kind of customizing the length depending on like where it's at on the head, where a clipper is like all even. Like I like clipper for the top of my hair because I don't care. I just want it to be short. But for those guys that want a little bit more to style on top or in the front, probably better to do a scissor cut on top. We're not usually explaining what we do throughout the whole haircut, but I'm like, maybe we should. Maybe we should explain. If the barber is doing most of the talking, it's, you know, tends to put them behind time-wise. Not always. Some people can do both. All right, so I think we got the length almost all even. I'm just gonna make sure that that front is good. I think it's just the way I cut hair, but this is why some barbers start with the top and then kind of do the sides. I don't think there is a right or wrong way, but the downside of starting with the sides is that once you cut the top, now this area might need to be re-blended because what you blended into, the length has changed. So now there's like a little bit of a bulge on the side that I need to blend in. Yeah, so that's why some barbers start with the top and then fade down, because it would almost eliminate this step completely. Yeah, sometimes I do things that don't make technical sense when doing a haircut, like I'm not always optimizing for 100% efficiency, because I noticed that when I have started with the top on some clients, they're like, well, are you gonna cut the sides? You know, because most barbers, I think, tend to start with the sides when they do haircuts. Or sometimes I've tried different techniques where you fade down, but you're leaving all this hair at the bottom, and that freaks clients out because they're like, are you gonna take that off? How's it look to you?
Good.
So I'm just gonna put a little bit of this styling powder in there. It's got a matte finish. This is actually kind of a strong hold and probably one of the easiest products to use, because all you gotta do is sprinkle a little bit in there. And the way he wears his hair is typically just like a messy look. So you got a few seconds to kind of work it through the hair before it kind of sets in. And then it just kind of holds it. I don't know how it works, but it works.